This video demonstrates how even if you may not be able to record against an object directly because it's a custom object due to a mask, different reasons, there's always ways to troubleshoot and work your way around it. Let's take a look. First thing I'm going to do is record a test against this JQ Widgets website. Some objects that aren't your typical HTML5 objects or typical objects in general. Alright, so we have some controls here, and these are not your typical controls. These are JQ widgets, some fancied up custom controls. And you can see I'll go through here and I'm able to capture information on these fields. However, when I get down to the Social Security field, you can see it contains special formatting, masking, if you will. I'll click in here. I'm typing this one as well, and it's not capturing it, right? It captured my first entries, but it's not capturing that. Well, what can I do? I know this object exists, right? So one of the things, come in here and we can inspect what this object is. So I'm going to hold down the control key and hover over the object. Again, you can see that UTP isn't seeing that object. It's seeing objects nearby. It's not seeing it. So how can we dig deeper? Let's right click on the object and select Inspect Object. Now when we do that, I'm going to begin to see other information about this object. So for example, this object I can see is of type text area, so that's the input field. Its parent object is this div. Now this particular object that's of type text area has a name property of null. It doesn't really have the information typically required to reliably interact with an object. So, but what we can use here is this div ID SNN input. Now, how did I come up with that? Well, one of the things you can do from here, and this is going to be more for some of the advanced users, is any call that can be made from your UTP script from Designer can also be done from here by using the Sahi syntax. So you'll begin that syntax with underscore Sahi, then dot, underscore, whatever the action is. So in this particular case, I want to find out if I can even determine that this object exists. So can UTP even see this object? So let's do an assert exists, and I'm going to do that on a div. Now again, typically I would just type div, but here I want underscore Sahi dot underscore div. And we can see that the ID of the div that I'm interested in is SNN input. All right. So let's see, does this object even exist in the terms of UTP being able to recognize it? Awesome, I have a syntax error. Let's go back and actually use autocomplete so that I don't have my syntax error. Let's see, assert exists. True. Okay, so when I can spell and actually follow along, then it works. So it can see it. It exists. All right, great. Can it perform any actions on it? Well, let's take a look. So I know that typically when I'm working with a text box, or a text area, that I'm going to use a set value action. I can see that here just from this example, and I know I'm going to indicate the type of object it is. In this case, where we can't access that text area directly, we're going to access the div, and then what is its property that we're going to use to find it. So we have here underscore Sahi dot underscore set value, and from here we know how to find this object now, which is the underscore Sahi dot underscore div SSN input. All right, and what value do I want to set? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now you can see I already have 1, 2, 3 up here, so let's remove that so that you'll be able to see it from scratch. And close that off. I hit enter, and what this is doing, so any command I'm doing here is imitating a command that would happen as part of the script. So it's almost like a real-time troubleshooting utility or terminal command line, if you will. So I can verify that using that set of commands, it indeed can enter information in there. I indeed can find the object. I can interact with it. Okay, so I know this syntax. Now, how do I translate that back into a step in my test? Let's copy this so that I have it. So what it's going to be is any of these Sahi commands, those are truncated off. Set value, we can see how set value is over here. We can see that we're going to use this div and we're going to have what we want to enter. There's the div and what we want to enter. So let's go ahead and hit stop on our script. I'm going to actually copy this line and paste it below. I could just add a new blank line and come in here and find set value in the list, but I'm going to do that, and I'm going to replace this with that div, right? And if I remember correctly, SSN input. All right, so there's my div I want to work with, and what is the information I want to put in? Let's put that information in. We're going to hit save. And I'm going to call this one masked text area. So we have a nice example here. Overwrite an existing one. And I'm going to go ahead and run it. Now, so that you can actually see it happen, what I'm going to do is add a new step below, call this one click. I'm just going to put something in there. All right, and I'm going to put a breakpoint there so that I can actually have a line for a breakpoint so that I can pause this and not run it past that step. So you'll be able to see it. Play Firefox, and we can see it executing with what's executing on the right. I will scroll down for you so you can see it going. Not touching anything now. It's going through, adding those items, and you can see that it's able to enter information into a masked field, which otherwise is quite difficult to work with as it's not really a true text area, text field, etc., a bit of a special object. So just to recap, you have the ability to spy objects here, to go out and look at the objects, but should it be an object that's really not typical, not standard, always going out, inspecting that object, looking through the tree and where and what that object is, and then identifying what might be alternate approaches, for example, using a div ID. 2, work with that object, testing it out using some of your Sahi commands. You can Google Sahi commands, and there's lots of them out there in addition to our documentation, as well as just looking through here for proper syntax and examples. So thank you for watching, and I hope this is helpful.